No.
Yes,
it's all different. No.
Yes, it does.
Gentlemen, if I may, let me jump in here.
Who's going to rule that?
That's the 6 minutes for the one-on-one.
That way we can preserve the French language in Quebec, which is very, very important.
Okay, we broadened it out to all four leaders now. Mr. Ignatieff, then Mr. Harper.
I want to get back to Jade's very important question. My dad came to Canada as an immigrant from Russia, and they arrived in Quebec. And the key, I think, to successful integration is mastery of the language. It's absolutely key that newcomers to our country, ils ont la maîtrise de la langue, Monsieur Duceppe. Je crois que ça, c'est le clé. That's the key, language integration. Well, one of the problems we've got here is that this government, the Harper government, has cut settlement funding, cut language instruction. The key to taking newcomers and making them good citizens, sharing our values, is giving them the mastery of the language. In Quebec, it's going to be the French language. In other parts of the country, it's going to be the other official language. And this government has cut settlement funding. So we've broken up the process by which we take newcomers and turn them into proud citizens. And the key to the future of a multicultural society, to get to Jade's point, is equality of opportunity under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. If we stick to those principles, you know, will continue to be a model and example to the world.
Mr. Harper.
Well, I should just respond briefly to Mr. Ignatieff's assertion. Of course, this government has tripled settlement funding with a higher emphasis on language because it is so important. But let me just answer the original question, which was on multiculturalism, because I think it's important. We favor multiculturalism. And what Canadians need to understand, what we understand about multiculturalism, is that people who make the hard decision to leave countries where they've been established for centuries or millennia and come here, they first and foremost want to belong to this country. That's why they come. That's why they're here. They also, at the same time, will change our country. And we show through multiculturalism our willingness to accommodate their differences, but so they're more comfortable. That's why we're so successful integrating people as a country. I think we're probably the most successful country in the world in that regard. Now, one issue that was raised was foreign credentials. In our budget is an important measure to give loans to new Canadians so they can get their foreign credentials when they simply can't afford to take a course. That's something Parliament should have been doing it instead of having this unnecessary election.
Jack Layton.
Well, first of all, that was a completely inadequate program, but maybe this debate will produce a much better one coming out of it. But why did you cut the immigrant settlement services? These are services that helped immigrants who arrived here to make their way and had, in some cases, many decades of a record of service, very effective service here in Canada. And yet your government came in and essentially created a situation where immigrants arrive and they just haven't got the support to do what you've rather piously said you think ought to be happening.
Well, Mr. Layton, that's simply not true. Settlement funding support has tripled under this government. And we've also maintained, we're the first government to maintain a vigorous and strong and open-door immigration policy during a recession, because we're focused on the long-term interests of Canada and the Canadian economy.
Why so many temporary foreign workers,
simply are not true. Well, look, the reason for that is
we've got more of them coming in than immigrants now.
We have people coming who have jobs waiting for them. They almost invariably settle here. You know, the NDP government in Manitoba wants us to bring people. That's why we're making some of this reorientation of the program, to make sure immigrants have work. It helps them adjust. It helps them become productive. It benefits everybody.
Mr.
I don't know why
Ignatieff.
anyone would be against that, and even your
Michael Ignatieff's
colleagues
turn.
are not against it.
My dad came here with his mom and his brothers. He came here as a family class immigrant. I sometimes worry, and if you'd been in power then, I don't think he would have got in. I mean, we've got to get the balance back. Family class immigration is crucial because families look after each other and stick to each other and help each other to succeed. If you put too much emphasis on temporary foreign workers, we'll get the balance right. Integration will be more difficult. I mean, and then we back up family reunification visas, so you got Canadian citizens saying, I can't get my mom and dad over here. And that's what you've been doing. You've been reducing family reunification, and that's creating basically deep unfairness and deep resentment on all the new Canadians that I meet.
Mr. Ignatieff, I know that you and the NDP have been saying that, but that's simply not true. We've been increasing categories across the board. In terms of family class, there will be as many family class admitted this year as in the previous year. That's the government's plan. I know that you think you could score some points making these kinds of arguments, but they're simply not true. And we will continue to make sure we have a strong policy that accepts immigrants for a wide variety of reasons, but particularly ensures that they're able to contribute all they can contribute to our economy and be as successful as they can be.
I think it is very clear, and since it was recognized that Quebec is a nation, and we're only 2%, I repeat, in North America, that people coming to Quebec has to integrate themselves with in French, which is the public common language. So I just don't understand why you oppose, Mr. Harper and Mr. Ignatieff, that Bill 101, the French language, be the language of work for the economic sectors relying on the federal code, labor code, which are the banks, telecommunication, transportation, all those three sectors, 300,000 people, a lot of women among them. I just don't understand why it doesn't. We don't need a constitutional amendment to do so.
Well, just Mr. DeSeba, I can answer the question. We have, as we've said as a government many times, we respect the division of powers in our federal constitution. It gives the federal government some powers over the labor area, gives the Quebec government other powers over the labor area. We have important constitutional responsibilities to the two national languages of this country, and in our area of jurisdiction, we respect that. We don't interfere with Quebec's jurisdiction over Bill 101. But let me just also question what you keep saying, that somehow multiculturalism is incompatible with being a Quebecer. You know, there's lots of people in this country who speak English who don't come from an English or a British background. One can retain their culture and their cultural identity and still integrate into the mainstream language of the community, which is French in Quebec and English in most of the rest of the country. And that's what we do, and that's why we support these policies.
Yes, but what we're saying on that, we had a commission working on that, and it's not because we don't want those people to enrich our culture. Obviously, we want that, but we don't want to create ghettos. And you think when you're coming in Quebec, you have to integrate to the Quebec society and the models. And you think when you're coming in Quebec, you have to integrate to the Quebec society. And the model of multiculturalism is in bankruptcy in Great Britain, as an example, and it is contested in a lot of places. That doesn't mean that you don't want the immigrants to come and to bring their own values and part of their culture. But you have to
reply here. Gentlemen, quick reply here, then the other two.
Creating ghettos. It is the most successful integration policy in the world. It helps Canadians retain their culture while being part of the broader community. That's what we're so proud of. I know the Bloc Québécois wants to break up the country, and you don't think new Canadians are going to support that objective. That's fine.
No, but this is not the case at all.
Gentlemen,
this is not the case at all.
Mr. Layton, please. Jack Layton's turn, please.
Well, I have to come back to the issue that's on the minds of most of the families that we're talking about here, which is how they can bring their family members to join them here. And how can we regard it as somehow acceptable that a family has to wait for 10 years for their mother or father to come and join them? I mean, that is just so wrong. I think of Olivia's mother, who lives with us, has lived with us for 20 years. Thank goodness she wasn't applying to come here now, because she might never have got to see my granddaughter. That's just simply wrong, and it's tearing families apart. Why don't we make a commitment, all of the parties together, to say that that's going to get fixed, and we're going to make sure that every family member that wants to be here as part of a loving family and building this country through that kind of love and community building, that we're going to make that a top priority. I tell you, the New Democrats will do that.
Well, first of all, Mr. Layton, when we took government, it's well known that there were backlogs of hundreds of thousands of files in every single category of immigration. We've been working to bring those down. We're admitting record numbers of people. That's what we're going to continue to do. The fact of the matter will be there will always be far more people willing to come to Canada than we can admit in any year. But we're going to keep making sure we admit as many as we can because our economy needs it, our society needs it, and we're all better off for it. And that applies just as strongly to family class as any other class.
I want to get to something that, back to the original question that Jade asked.